This episode of Us and Them contains strong language that will be offensive to some people. Listener discretion is advised.
If you are in the street, please back up on the sidewalk. Because these officers... USA! USA! USA!
Danielle Walker has marched in lots of Black Lives Matter demonstrations. But the one in Kingwood, West Virginia, was different. Walker is a member of the West Virginia House of Delegates. She's a Democrat who represents Morgantown, a college town that's the home of West Virginia University. Last fall, she accepted an invitation to join a Black Lives Matter demonstration in Kingwood, a town of about 3,000 people. Kingwood wasn't the first town to host such a march. In 2020, Black Lives Matter's rallies popped up in American cities you've probably never heard of. Places like Rugby, North Dakota, Canton, Missouri, and Aledo, Texas. On the day of the Kingwood rally, organizers had a straightforward plan. Meet up at a baseball field near downtown and march 5 blocks to a 3-story sandstone courthouse. They told the police and the sheriff's departments about their plans. They would hold Black Lives Matter banners, homemade signs, and they would chant. On the way to the courthouse, this happened.
Go suck Biden's
terrorist organization! Get back here, scum!
You're a piece of dog.
Terrorist organization!
Yeah, you.
Why don't you get a job? Terrorist! Yeah, get a job!
We're good.
Yeah, you'll be good, all right. You're a piece of dog.
Working commies. Loving commies.
Delegate Danielle Walker is black. The crowd surrounding her was white.
We are here for peace. Yes, we are here. We are here to build bridges. We are here because we are one. So we are here sometimes to be uncomfortable for a moment, to be part of a movement.
From West Virginia Public Broadcasting and PRX, this is Us and Them, the show that tells the stories about the things that divide us. I'm Trey Kay. September 12, 2020 was one of many racial flashpoints across the country.
There were guys with old bolt-action rifles with bayonets. There were guys with brand new AR-15 style weapons. There were pistols.
Chris Jones is an investigative reporter for 100 Days in Appalachia. He's a Marine Corps veteran who fought in Afghanistan. Later, he worked as a war correspondent there. Jones was in Kingwood the day of the march.
So I spent a lot of time around angry men with guns, pointing them at each other. I was afraid in Kingwood in a way that I wasn't afraid when I've had guns fired at me.
Which may help explain why Danielle Walker's security team recommended that she wear a bulletproof vest that day.
Those who was there as security told me that I should put it on.
The BLM rally in Kingwood was organized by a local black resident. As word got out, people from around the area posted on Facebook that they would show up to protect the town from the BLM protest. It was a tense day, filled with hateful talk, raging anger, and lots of guns. It was a day that defined some of this country's racial divide.
So I am Delegate Danielle Walker from West Virginia, representing District 51, Monongalia County. I am the only woman of color, the only Black woman serving with 99 other delegates, along with 2 other Black males.
Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in New Iberia, Louisiana. I am a true Southern belle.
And how did growing up in the South inform your values and your priorities as an adult?
Oh, the Jim Crow South. You had to know exactly who you were, what your place was. You needed to understand your 3 strikes growing up. Number 1, you're Black. Number 2, you're a female. And number 3, baby, I'm sorry, but we are poor. That was taught to me instantly, along with my ABCs and my 1, 2, 3s.
The Jim Crow South took hold just after the Civil War. While the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, new state and local laws legalized racial discrimination and segregation. Many of those laws were in place up until the 1960s and 70s. And some of those practices continue today. Danielle Walker and her family made West Virginia home 10 years ago. Her ex-husband worked in the oil and gas industry. Then Walker was recruited for a new challenge, to run for House of Delegates in 2018. And she won. What was it like showing up to that first day as a delegate for your district?
I didn't even know how to get in the building. I mean, it's not funny, y'all. I had only been to the Capitol one time before with Mom's Clean Air Force to speak in front of a Senate committee, meeting. I knew where to park on the other side being a visitor. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know that I had the privilege of not placing my items so security to go through them.
Where were you when you first heard the news about George Floyd's death?
Oh my gosh. I immediately called my oldest son, and just the silence amongst the 3 of us was deadly. I wanted my child home with me at that moment. You just want to shut down and make sure that your children are okay. And
the Minneapolis police killing of George Floyd triggered worldwide protests, candlelight vigils, solemn demonstrations, angry riots. And a few months later, Delegate Walker got an invitation to a Black Lives Matter rally in Kingwood, West Virginia. Did you know anything about any potential counter-protester activity?
I knew a little bit. We seen a little bit of it in Morgantown. I had no idea that it was going to be as intense as it was, but I knew that I wasn't going to shy away from it.
How did you prepare to go to the rally?
I woke up early that morning. I prepared breakfast for my sons. I brought my oldest son to work. I felt horrible because I didn't tell neither one of my children or my mother that I was going to this march. And it felt like I was walking myself to the rope to hang myself.
Really?
Yes. I had been in Kingwood before, selling raffle tickets for a fundraiser for Habitat for Humanity. But even the smell of the city was different.
Well, how so? How was it different?
I don't know if I was hypersensitive, but even with the sun shining, I just felt like a dark cloud over me. It was the first time that I put on body armor and I didn't even know how to put it on.
Why did you choose to wear it this day?
Those who was there as security told me that I should put it on. I didn't know the conversations that was happening with the counter protesters, but they felt that I had overstepped my boundaries because I didn't live in that county. They felt that I was abusing the title of delegate as a privilege. When my year-round tan doesn't wash off my skin, I am Black. I am proud. And so why would I not go 20 minutes away to support someone else who wanted to have this in his town that he grew up, where his children go to school, and say, Black lives matter. We never said all lives didn't, but right now we need your help.
Right. Just tell me a little bit about this vest. Like, how do you wear it? What you have it on right now?
I do have it on right now.
Can you just like step up in the camera so I can just look at it a little bit? Mm-hmm. Wow, it looks kind of bulky, like right across your chest.
It is.
Right? Yeah. And why do you have it on right now?
I usually carry a weapon, but I'm very mindful of that. So I knew that I was coming to a studio. I knew I didn't want to bring it into the studio, and I wasn't going to leave it in my vehicle. And so this is the best protection that I can have.
This whole thing of you carrying a weapon and wearing a body armor, you didn't do this before you were a member of the House of Delegates, no?
I didn't do this my first 2 years when I was a member of the House of Delegates. But with the threats...
This started with Kingwood?
This started with Kingwood.
I just want to ask you, like, what does it feel like to wear this vest?
Shackles. Imprisonment. Shame.
When Black Lives Matter's demonstrators marched that day in Kingwood, they had no idea the reception they would face.
Across the field from us were the counter protesters in their vehicles, on motorcycles, in their trucks, Confederate flags flying, an arsenal of weapons, Trump flags flying, the American flag flying.
After a break, how a rally in a small town reflects many of the things that divide us. You're listening to Us and Them. This program is supported in part by the West Virginia Humanities Council and the CRC Foundation.
In difficult times, music gives us peace, brings us together, and helps heal us. It calms our nerves and brightens our days. That's why we're bringing you classic episodes of Mountain Stage on air and in our podcast. This is Larry Gross, host of Mountain Stage. Find something that's familiar or brand new and feel the power of live music on our website, mountainstage.org.
This episode of Us and Them contains strong language that will be offensive to some people. Listener discretion is advised. Hey, it's Trey, and this is Us and Them from West Virginia Public Broadcasting and PRX. Black Lives Matter is a movement that reflects hope and anger born from generations of racism. Marches and rallies around the world protest racial discrimination, oppression, and violence, including, that day, in Kingwood, West Virginia.
So the Black Lives Matter marchers had posters, water, backpacks, cameras, hope in their eyes, and was ready to take a stand. We had a Black Lives Matter flag. Some of the Black Lives Matter protesters had weapons. There was police officers parked on the side of the road with instructions of telling us we must stay on the sidewalk.
Chris Jones was in Kingwood that day. He's an investigative reporter and photojournalist for 100 Days in Appalachia and covers domestic extremism.
So there were two groups in Kingwood. There was the protesters, and then there was the counter-protesters. The counter-protest group met up in the Walmart parking lot before the actual event was planned. So in this parking lot, there was a group of vehicles, mostly trucks, larger pickup trucks, that were kind of away from the Walmart entrance. You know, maybe 20, 30 people standing around, drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes, you know, the sort of nervous laughter that people who are meeting for the first time or don't usually come together.
Yeah, man, how you doing?
Doing all right. Figured I'd come bother you guys again.
Another 100 days in Appalachia?
Yes, sir. You know, we're all standing in the parking lot waiting for the thing to happen. It had that sort of nervous anticipation. And then, you know, while these people are kind of having their morning hey hellos, let's drink our coffee, there's a guy standing there with an SS shirt, you know, the Nazi SS bolt shirt. And there's guys checking guns in their trunks. And there's a lot of, you know, talk about, you know, protecting the town.
Jones says about 35 vehicles drove together through Kingwood. The group pulled up across a baseball field from the Black Lives Matter group.
The counter-protest side, guns were just pouring out of these vehicles. Rifles, shotguns, lots of AR-15s. One man actually had a rifle. It was a semi-automatic shotgun, but he had a drum magazine in it, so it probably had about 30 to 40 rounds. There were guys with old bolt-action rifles with bayonets. There were guys with brand new AR-15 style weapons. There were pistols. And to be honest with you, seeing firearms in West Virginia in public itself is not rare.
But this was different, more amped up. It made Chris Jones, a Marine Corps veteran and a war correspondent, more than a little uneasy.
I was afraid in Kingwood in a way that I wasn't afraid when I've had guns fired at me. I think that one thing that was clearly lacking in Kingwood was any sense of awareness for the consequences of pulling a trigger. There were guys there who I watched them put a round in the chamber, which means the only thing between, you know, the gun going off was somebody pulling a trigger, and so that the weapon was fully loaded, had a round in the chamber, and they would just rest their finger on the trigger with the safety off.
Why do you think these guys were armed to the teeth?
Oh, there was very clearly a perceived grievance in Kingwood that day. They perceived that the presence of a handful of mostly women, they perceived that to be such a threat to something about their sense of identity, something about their sense of community, something about what Kingwood meant. And I think part of it was claiming that space, right? That Kingwood, West Virginia, that Preston County, West Virginia, was a place that a certain kind of person had full autonomy. And they felt that the BLM movement, that the individuals involved in it, and that the ideas espoused by such a movement was a threat to them and to this idea of what Kingwood is.
Black lives! Black lives!
Go on there, your place. Get your head back up here. Just use the N-word.
It may have been those perceived grievances that prompted the counter-protesters to face off with BLM protesters. The raw, angry words. Chris Jones says some of the counter-protesters told him the town has no race problem.
Why do they want to bring that into our community? We've never had a black problem in this community. I asked that Danielle Walker 3 times at least, maybe more, tell me when the last time was a black man was killed in this county by a white man or by a cop. She couldn't answer me because it hasn't happened.
But one of the few black people living in Kingwood says racism is part of life for him. That's why Frank Goins organized the Black Lives Matter rally.
My name's Frank Goins II. I'm from Kingwood, West Virginia. I was born in 1983 by Frank Goins I and Melvana Wilhelm Goins. I was the organizer of the BLM march that we had on Saturday, September the 12th.
Frank's family has lived in Preston County, West Virginia since 1898. His great-great-grandmother was born a slave and moved to West Virginia after the Civil War.
Every day you better expect to wake up and deal with some type of profiling or racism. One of the two, because it's going to happen before the day's up. Even if it's just something small, even if it's just a glare you get when you walk into a store or anything.
One of Frank's white friends, the girlfriend of a buddy, didn't believe that it was a big deal to be black in Kingwood.
Well, I think you guys overreact. I don't see it happening every day. I don't see you having to deal with it all the time. I don't think it's that bad here.
Then Frank wrote a Facebook post about the death of Breonna Taylor, the black woman killed by police in Louisville, Kentucky. Some readers responded with vitriol.
And I got this ignorant response, and she couldn't believe it. And she argued with the person until she was blue in the face. And then the next one come on. And then the next one come on. And then the next one come on. And she was like, oh my God. She said, I cannot, she was stunned on the amount of people that had something negative to say, period, about that woman getting shot.
Frank Goins invited Delegate Danielle Walker to the Kingwood March. Based on social media traffic, he could tell there would be lots of people showing up from the other side. Chris Jones says he asked Frank if he ever considered canceling the event.
I just got to the point where I realized it's a kind of a dumb question to ask Frank why he didn't just go away. I mean, this is his town. Where's he going to go? If he's going to be somewhere talking about Black Lives Matter stuff, I don't think he ever considered not being there. I know he was very afraid for his kids, for the people that he had asked to come out and march with him and were standing next to him. And
including Danielle Walker.
He was terrified that they were going to go after Danielle and not him, right? Because, he's like, look, there's three of us there that weren't white. If bullets start going, we all know who they're going to shoot at first. And I think it just spoke a lot to his character, that his concern always seemed to be about the other people that had showed up to stand with him.
West Virginia Legislature Delegate Danielle Walker was at this march. Can you say exactly what role did she play?
Pretty much everyone in this part of West Virginia has a perspective on Danielle Walker. I've gone to 3 counties over, and people want to talk to me about what they think about Danielle Walker, for good and for bad. And I think she very much says things that people who agree with her in West Virginia feel overwhelming social and familial and existential pressure to not say them. And she says those things out loud. On that day, on September 12th, she was there to help carry the sign. And then I think when she realized that the BLM marchers, once they realized that they were about to be met by, 60 plus heavily armed counter protesters, she picked up the bullhorn.
We are all Americans. So today, we say, now pay attention, all lives matter, including, wait a minute, stand with me, including white, black, any color, we all matter.
I mean, you can hear it in the audio, you hear it in her voice, how raw this stuff is, and you can hear the fear in her voice, and you can hear her coming over the fear with something else that just gets her to keep trying to have these heart-to-heart, face-to-face conversations with people.
The black part is what pisses everybody in America off.
So if I started chanting, all lives matter,
I'd be right here with you, lady. I'd hug you, and I'd
break it down. I'm going to say black lives, including white lives, including black lives, including Native American lives.
Well, then why are we hollering Black Lives Matter? We're all hollering all lives.
And you can also hear, if you listen to just the whole day, you hear how there's this moment towards the end where she finally just went arm in arm with a guy holding a gun who'd been yelling at her, all day. And she finally is like, well, let's just walk together. And she forced this day to resolve peacefully. And I don't think that she came out that morning with the intent of, being at the center of attention.
That day in Kingwood, Black Lives Matter marchers were the target of hate speech and racial epithets. They were outnumbered by angry counter-protesters who say Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization.
This same conversation and dialogue has been happening for over 400 years. Black people came here in chains and shackles. We were the terrorists then, by no fault of our own, and we are still seen as the terrorists today. Why? Because we communicate different. Why? Because we take a stand. Why? Because we just don't do it for our race. Why? Because we are the most inclusive, diverse race.
Is it possible that because they've seen a march on television that was associated with a Black Lives Matter rally and violence broke out, that they would go ahead and say, well, that means this is a terrorist organization, this is a radical, destructive, violent organization?
I call that a weak cop-out. The Ku Klux Klan is a terrorist organization, and they use that Confederate flag, and it does not mean heritage. It is pure hate. And so why would you carry that flag to a counter-protest? Why would you do that? I do not want to see it from the other eyes, because I've been seeing it for the 44 years that I have been walking on this earth. So no, I'm sorry. That is inexcusable. And we're not doing that anymore. See, that is the cop-out of I'm not a racist. And so because we put so many different adjectives in front of racism, I'm going to tell you this. Where there is systematic, institutional racism, there is a racist. No one wants to be called a racist, but no one wants to take the time to do any anti-racism training.
I feel relatively certain, just based on all the things that have happened over this past year, that there probably is going to be another Black Lives Matter rally. And if one is scheduled and you have a sense that there are going to be counter-protesters there, including white supremacists, what will you do?
What I've been doing, taking a stand. If you call me, I'm coming.
The ugly, racist taunting Danielle Walker endured in Kingwood was nothing short of mob intimidation. When Delegate Walker marched in Kingwood, she was exercising her First Amendment right to free speech, to peacefully assemble. When a mob of white men taunted her and other marchers with ugly, racist threats, they were trying to silence her. She refused to be silenced. It happened again on January 6th. On that day, a pro-Trump mob stormed the United States Capitol in an attempt to thwart democracy. They violated federal law, ransacked the office of the Speaker of the House, and stormed onto the floor of the United States Senate. They believed in conspiracies. Yet the truth is straightforward. We live in an imperfect union. To make it just for all, people like Danielle Walker march, not just in big cities, but in small cities like Kingwood. They must have the right, not just to march, but to critique, loudly and powerfully, the injustices in our increasingly fragile democracy. Shortly after the Kingwood BLM rally, Delegate Danielle Walker wrote a letter to West Virginia Governor Jim Justice. She asked him to condemn the hate-filled speech and threats she and others received in Kingwood that day. Walker also asked the governor to call her to discuss the situation. She says the governor has not called her. However, he addressed her letter at a routine press conference. Governor Justice said no one should have to tolerate hate or hate speech. The governor had a representative from the state police contact Walker. Now there are troopers available when she is in public. Danielle Walker was reelected to a second term in the West Virginia House of Delegates this past November. You've been listening to Us and Them. Our team for this show is me, Trey Kay, Todd Melby, Brad Stratton, and Kate Smith. Our thanks to 100 Days in Appalachia, a nonprofit news outlet at West Virginia University. Reporter Chris Jones, producer Jesse Wright, and executive editor Ashton Mara. Michael Lipton and Tristan Lozow wrote and performed the Us and Them show music. Mark Lerner designed our logo. Lelena Price provides us with images for the web. The wonderful people at PRX and West Virginia Public Broadcasting make Us and Them possible. So do grants from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the CRC Foundation, and the West Virginia Humanities Council. Us and Them was originally developed with assistance from the Mentorship Program at AIR, the Association of Independents in Radio. We'll see you next time on Us and Them.
Support for this podcast comes from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.